If you're trying to save your marriage, this video is for you. Hi, it's Grant here. Before we get started in this training, things are going to be a little bit different to the ones that you usually see. And that's because this training specifically was made for both a husband and a wife. And so if your partner isn't with you right now, I highly recommend that you go and get them, you sit them down with you, and you both watch this together. It's important. If that's not possible, look, no worries. I understand you might not be together right now. You must send this to them later. So make sure that after you've watched this, they see it too. Now, with that being said, I have to put a quick disclaimer out there. And that is that this training will likely make you feel uncomfortable. Because what I'm about to do is pull back the curtain on your marriage and reveal everything that is going on beneath the surface, including the bad and the fucking ugly. But let's face it, the reason you are here is because you are tired of doing things the comfortable way. Going through the same cycle over and over, the same arguments, the same disagreements for years and years, hoping that somehow things will be different. So with that in mind, please promise me one thing. No matter how you feel about your partner right now, and as you go through this video, please cast aside any judgments or criticisms until the very end. Because this training is intended to bring you closer together. Not to isolate you or to push you further apart like most other coaches or counselors try to do. But first, we're going to have to hit some speed bumps in order for you guys to come together and to truly make that happen. With that intro out of the way, let me dive into this. And gents, I want to talk to you first of all. Let me know if this sounds familiar. You feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells within your marriage. You never know what might set off an argument with your wife or what is going to make her happy. No matter how hard you work or what you do, it never seems to be enough. All she focuses on is what you're not doing or how you let her down, especially when it comes to the home. Your sex life has practically become non-existent, and when it does happen, you feel like you're just begging and trying to persuade. You're jumping through hoops in order to have that physical connection together. You keep promising to change and do better, but you and I know you always slip back into your old behaviors and habits. You end up disappointing both yourself and your wife. You're starting to wonder if it's even worth trying anymore. You're considering avoiding your wife as much as possible to keep the peace. Now, ladies, let's look at the other side of this equation. Let me know if this sounds like where you are and what you're feeling right now. You don't feel emotionally secure and safe in your relationship. Opening up to your husband feels risky because you're not sure if you can trust him with your feelings, nor what kind of response you're going to get out of him. You found yourself taking the lead in most aspects of your relationship and family life, even though you desperately desire your husband to step in and step up. Whenever you try to talk about the relationship, your husband gets defensive. Or he plays the victim and he makes it all about him and his problems. So it makes productive conversations somewhat impossible. You're exhausted from juggling work, the household chores, looking after the children, and all the while you feel like your husband doesn't pull his weight. You're now considering whether you can continue in this marriage even though you still love your husband, or at least you want to love him. Now, despite all of these differences, it's not all doom and gloom, because these seemingly endless conflicts in your marriage can come to an end. There are still some things that you can both agree on, which is why you're watching this right now. The glimmer of hope is there. Because when we look at it, you both want a loving and peaceful marriage where you can communicate better, more effectively, argue less, and feel seen, heard, and understood. You want things to feel effortless between the two of you, as if both of you were made for each other, because that feeling is there deep down inside. You both genuinely hope to rekindle the intimacy and the passion that once burned bright in your relationship, that fiery start that you experienced together. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Grant, everything you've said sounds pretty accurate so far, but how can it possibly be that we want the same things when it seems to be we're living such different realities? It doesn't make sense. Don't worry, because I'll be answering that later on in this training. If you're also thinking that what I just said is scarily accurate in what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. It's almost as if I've lived it through your relationship myself. And that's because, in a way, I have. You see, 2 years ago, I was in your exact shoes. After my wife and I married, I became a workaholic. And I used my financial contribution as an excuse to not give our relationship, my wife, and subsequently our family the attention they deserved. To make matters worse, I became fat, lazy, boring, and I pushed my wife to the point of not wanting to spend any time with me. She did not feel safe in speaking about anything in my presence. You could hardly call it a marriage at that point. And it was only when, one day out of the blue, my wife started to literally pack her bags and the kids' bags and sat me down to tell me that she was done. She'd had enough and she was leaving. Needless to say, this was very much the needed wake-up call that I required in that moment to make me see what was going on. And I did everything I fucking could to figure out how to save my marriage. I spent months digging around through books, videos, podcasts, forums, blogs, anything that I could find to figure out what the fuck I was doing wrong in my marriage. And I eventually started to stumble across books that talked around masculine and feminine energy and how they play out in a relationship's dynamic. Now, I was ignorant, right? I'd heard about masculine and feminine energy before, but I'd never taken the time to truly understand what it looked like in a relationship. When I started to see what life could be like when the masculine and the feminine energies were embodied, it gave me a glimpse of hope, one that I could actually save the relationship that was about to end. But little did I know at that time that I was still extremely far from the finish line. Even though I now had some new knowledge and skills, knowing what to implement and how to implement it was a completely different story. And one of the biggest obstacles that I faced was having to realize that my wife and I were fundamentally different in how we operated. The whole concept of yin and yang, complementary opposites, completely opened my eyes. Because for so long, I'd always tried to get my wife to think more like me. Ultimately, I was asking her to be more like a man, and I was ignoring the differences that we shared that brought us closer together. I always tried to apply logic to my way of thinking, and I would try to win disagreements or breakdowns in conversation with her from my perspective. Little did I know, the more I tried to get her to think and act like me, to resolve things in the way that I felt best, to come at it from my approach and my angle, the more I was actually pushing her away and making her feel unloved. Thankfully, she saw how much effort I was putting in and gave me the time and space I needed to fully change my ways. She allowed me to finally start being able to connect with her in a healthy and loving way. She didn't have to. I'd pushed her to the brink already, and hats off to her, because it took me 9 months before I really started to make progress on my own. And it was another 12 months before I could say that we had really fixed our marriage. Now, if we fast forward to today, me and my wife have never been so connected and close. Every day is easy. We have a deep and meaningful conversation whenever we need to, sometimes spontaneously, and we do not argue. And even when we do have challenges to overcome, we always come out stronger. We always come out better connected, because she feels safe to talk about anything she needs to, when I rolled a clock back previously and she never felt safe to even tell me how she was feeling that day. At best, I would get a surface level, I'm fine, and that was it. The best part to this newfound peace is it's allowed me to become a better father and a financial provider in the meantime. It was less than 12 months ago that we were technically homeless. And my mentality was, sort out the finances, then I'll be able to sort out the family previously. But now, because I flipped that on its head, we now get to travel the world with stability and vitality. something we'd always dreamed of. So while helping other couples go through the same transformation we did, helping hundreds of couples do the same directly and indirectly, I've come to realize something that is genuinely quite concerning. I realized that nearly every couple I've worked with is facing one or all of the same hidden roadblocks when trying to save their marriage. And when I dove into it deeper, I realized that the cause of these roadblocks were the result of 3 fucking ridiculous lies that men and women are being told that I fell foul to by modern society and the mainstream media today. And so in the rest of this training, I'm going to reveal to you exactly what those lies are and how they are sabotaging millions of marriages every year. How you can protect yourself from these lies so that you can finally break through the hidden roadblocks that you keep running into over and over in your marriage. And finally, I'm going to share with you my no bullshit, action-orientated roadmap that hundreds of my clients have been able to use to completely transform their circumstance, their relationship, or their marriage within literally weeks by focusing on actually solving the problems in their marriage rather than just trying to talk it out. And so with that being said, let me start to reveal these fucking lies. So lie number 1, one of the biggest destroyers of marriages today, and it's largely, we've all heard it, directly or indirectly, is that it's impossible for men and women to understand each other. And that's complete bullshit. If it really were impossible, society wouldn't exist. And I wouldn't still be happily married to my wife today. The only reason people believe this lie is because it gives them permission to not take any responsibility for their relationship. They get to play the blame game and point the finger at everything and anyone but themselves. But it's not just a matter of responsibility, right? A big part of the problem is that most people think that by understanding your partner, that it's some sort of secret and magical mind reading ability. But it's not actually that hard. It's far simpler than you think. And it definitely isn't magic. And although that's how it can feel when you learn how to do it for the first time, it really is a truth around understanding 2 basic and simple things. And it's a combination of them that moves you forward. Number 1 is knowledge and number 2 is skills. More specifically, the knowledge of understanding your partner's needs and the skill of understanding how to communicate and act based on those needs. And the first problem that I see most often is that both sides are trying to understand their partner from their own perspective rather than from their partner's. But there's a second problem, and that is if you don't know how your partner feels and how they see things, you'll still end up responding in an emotionally reactive way that ultimately hurts them and causes more friction in your relationship. And this is exactly why couples therapy doesn't work for most people. All they do is get you to talk and vent about the problems and point out everything that is wrong with each other. And once you go home, those problems continue to come up again and again. You end up responding in the same way and repeating the cycle because nothing's changed. You've just vocalized the problems more and given more energy to them. If you haven't learned how to address the underlying issues and what is causing you to react negatively in the first place, or even what those underlying issues are, it's never going to break the cycle. It's never going to change, and you're not going to get to where you want to be. So how do we even begin to approach this? I can feel the question on the tip of your tongue. Well, it's like I said earlier, the key is understanding each other. It's through acquiring the right knowledge and skills. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll give you the knowledge that you need to know and develop in order to gain a true understanding of your partner at a deep emotional level that no class, therapist, or counselor will ever teach you. And after that, I'll show you how you can leverage this newfound understanding. Start building the right skills that will allow you to finally start to make progress together as a couple. So you're probably starting to think, okay, Grant, I'm getting understanding that knowing my partner's side is important, but what am I even trying to understand about my partner in the first place? So this is a good question. The first and most destructive misunderstanding that I see between couples that I work with is that they don't even understand who they are at the most fundamental level. And that is the basic differences between men and women, right? We're different. And it leads me to the second biggest lie that is destroying marriages today. The idea that men and women are equal. Fucking spoiler alert, we're not. Now, before you go on to call me misogynistic and anything else, I actually do believe that men and women are equal, but not in the way society and the mainstream media is trying to make you believe. They're trying to convince us that men and women are supposed to be one-for-one carbon copies of each other. Marriage is supposed to be 50-50. They say we should work the same, act the same, and be good at the same things. And we bring that to the marriage. The reality is, men and women were designed as different creatures, different hormones, different behaviors, different capabilities, different purposes in life, and each have their own strengths, their own weaknesses, and ultimately a role to play in the relationship. And it's not the same role. It's these differences that allow each one to contribute to the relationship in their own unique way, resulting in a beautiful, loving, and harmonious partnership for a lifetime. This is also the same polarity and harmony that made you guys attracted to each other in the first place. Think about it. If all you wanted was a friend to have beers with or someone to gossip with 24/7, you'd have just married a roommate from school, college, uni, whatever it might be, right? You guys would be going out to the bar, getting drunk every weekend, chit-chatting behind everyone's back, instead of making love and trying to start a family together, trying to set things up for the future, leave a legacy. You wouldn't bother. But this now brings us to the uncomfortable truth. Because in order for a beautiful, harmonious relationship to thrive, using the masculine and feminine and for all of it to exist, the masculine, or the man, in my opinion, must be the one to take charge. And that's because the feminine relaxes most when it's in the presence of a decisive and caring man. It's yin and yang. Yes, women can take care of themselves. Let's not beat around the bush. They stepped into the masculine void and have done a fucking good job about it. But we are at the point where they no longer want to do those things, especially when they have children. You see, a masculine man gives her the structure, the protection, and the strength to fully surrender into her feminine world. Now, I know this might not seem fair at first, but you may or may not be a religious man, but hear me out on this. We cannot look to God and ask to provide us with the strength to ultimately allow us to be a strong man and then complain about the challenges that he puts in front of us. How can we desire to be a strong man in the eyes of God if we're not willing to accept the challenges of overcoming adversity and growing and evolving to become better that he's presenting with us all the time? Because your wife knows that you have it in you. When you ultimately become a man who takes charge, who's ambitious, who is driven, you create the certainty and the security that your wife needs to thrive in her feminine. And that's when the nagging and the complaining, the sarcastic criticisms, it will turn into the appreciation and support. And that's exactly what happened with my clients that you see on the screen here. But this still leaves us with one more problem. And many of you guys have likely already tried taking the lead in your marriage. I get it. You've tried to step up. You've promised that you'd change. You'd start taking action into it. And you maybe even saw some positive changes. But within a matter of weeks or months, you slowly reverted back to your old ways and things went right back to where they were before. You're not alone, right? Here's the thing. I've seen this happen in nearly every couple's situation that I've ever worked with. And what I realize is it's not because men don't care or that they don't mean it when they say they want to change. Because they do. They've got a long journey of hard work ahead of them, but they do want the change. What I came to realize is because they've fallen into the third biggest lie told by modern relationship experts and therapists. And that is that you can solve your problems by talking it out and talking about them. And we've gotten so accustomed to the comfort and the convenience in society that now we expect problems to simply take care of themselves with a simple command or conversation. To make this entire situation worse, most of the couples therapists and counselors will spend all day letting you vent about your problems, allow you to analyze those problems, and they give you a nice little dopamine rush that you feel better with for a short while, but none of them actually give you a reliable strategy or a plan to make permanent changes, particularly to your behavior and mindset, which would ultimately allow us to lead our marriage. So how do we actually start making these lasting changes so that you're not always going to fall back into your old patterns? How do we disrupt them? How do we change things? The first thing you need to realize is the understanding that is required to create the permanent change. For most people, it's fundamentally flawed up front. And here's what I mean. When you tell your wife something like, I promise that I'm going to change from now on, it's basically the same as saying, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and get a six-pack. Is it possible? Of course, absolutely. But what you're failing to realize is when you tell someone you're going to commit to losing 20 pounds and getting a six-pack, what you're actually committing to is spending more hours than you do in the gym each week. It's changing the way that you view health and your body, perhaps getting over some body dysmorphia. You're changing a good portion of your lifestyle and your relationship with your partner, yourself, and with food. And most importantly, you are adopting the discipline and consistency to do all of these things, not just for months, but for the rest of your life. And when you don't do these things and make these changes, you've essentially broadcasted the fact that you are not a man who keeps his word, not only to yourself, but also to your family. On top of that, when you don't understand the gravity of the promises that you make and keep you as a man, you end up underestimating what it actually takes to create big changes in your life, which ultimately leads to repeated failures and disappointments, and you keep these negative experiences reoccurring. So what do we do? What is the correct approach for creating lasting changes in your behaviors? Well, the first step is what I call setting the compass in your marriage specifically, because this is where you set clear goals. Not based on just what you want, but based on what both of you want together. It's how you integrate the views that you have to be on the same page. You see, the great thing about men is that they operate best with simple and clear goals. But even better than simple goals are the goals that have meaning and purpose behind them. So when we're driven by something that we know is the most important to ourselves and to our relationship, the vision that we have for our family, we become practically unstoppable. And you can now see why it's so important to develop a mutual understanding with your partner before you start trying to change. Because if you don't know how to connect with your partner, if you don't intuitively know how they operate best and what they want, then all you'll do is come up with solutions that operate from a place of ego that don't actually move your marriage in the right direction. You might have already experienced this yourself. Because your wife complains about something, you'll say you'll take care of it or that you won't do it anymore, but she's still mad at you because you didn't really understand what she needed from you. You just got on and did something and it didn't truly solve the problem. However, the onus doesn't just fall on men, okay? I want to make that really clear. Because ladies, as the wife, you also need to give your husband the space and the support that he needs in order to change. While it certainly helps to have a strong driving force behind him, it's still going to be a challenging journey. If you continue to flip out at him for the smallest of mistakes or constantly nag him all the while you can see that he's actively trying to improve himself and the relationship, it's extremely discouraging for him. He feels like, what's the fucking point? Especially early on in the journey. And so instead, you need to adopt the mentality that you're on his team. And by supporting him to shift the energy that he's in, he's going to put right everything that went on before. Because if your man wants to become someone who ultimately deserves the most feminine energy and most feminine version of you, then show him what he gets by creating a safe container for you to lean into. Because this is how you get him to change from, is it even worth it and leave me alone, to, I want to do more of this. I want to step in more. I want to level up more. I feel like a leader, and the courage and the confidence inside of him will continue to rise. And so here's what we've covered so far, to give you a bit of a summary on what we've gone through. I've discussed and shown you how to actually understand and connect with one another as a man and a woman so that you can start having productive conversations and intuitively understand each other's needs. I've talked about how to identify and use the masculine and feminine differences to your advantage rather than seeing them as obstacles. And finally, I've shown you how to work together as a team to create lasting change through your actions, providing solutions to build a strong and robust marriage, rather than continuously talking it out like you do at the therapist's office and just repeating the same try and fail cycles over and over again. So where does this go? What's next? Well, the first option is that you take this new knowledge that I've given you and you try to figure things out on your own. That's what I did. Started my journey over 3 years ago when my wife wasn't happy, and I've built from there off my own accord. But even after consuming dozens of books, hundreds of hours of podcasts, it still took me over 9 months before I really started to see progress. But then there's another 12 months that followed that process before I finally got to the point of being able to say that I fully repaired my marriage and it turned into the incredible loving relationship that I have today. But if I'm honest, I wasn't even sure if I was going to get through it during that first year, because when I did slip up or we did disagree or I felt like I was letting my wife down, I had nowhere to go and I didn't know in what proportion I was making progress or not. It was a guessing game. So if you don't want to go through the same pain and uncertainty that I did, then there's a second option. And so for the first time ever, I'm opening up a brand new live intensive 12-week cohort for couples, where I'll be personally working with both husbands and wives to get them from being in a hostile, disconnected, and desensitized relationship to both sides feeling fully connected, appreciated, and loved within a thriving marriage at the end of those 12 weeks. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because after coaching dozens of couples and individuals on a one-to-one basis over the last year, I've realized that nearly all of the other programs out there are trying to isolate either the husband or the wife. They're forcing them into a lonely journey of self-improvement, all the while waiting for the relationship to get better. They're still figuring it out behind the scenes together in hope that it's going to work. But it's still coming from a one-sided point of view that isn't actually sustainable. So instead, this program will allow both of you to support each other from day one and build your marriage in the way that both of you want it to be, just like a marriage should. Specifically, we will do this in a 3-step process. Step number 1 is creating your emotional sanctuary. So the first thing that we'll focus on is helping you to create emotional security and that safe space in your relationship that both of you crave. Specifically, we will hold your hand through the process of learning how to master your emotions, stop being reactive, and so that you can have a harmonious relationship together. How to resolve the conflict without getting triggered, defensive, or start to build resentment after every conversation. I'm going to show you how to develop an intuitive understanding of exactly what your partner needs so that you can meet those needs. We'll build on this and show you how to meet them without sacrificing your own needs, so it feels like you're doing this together. And ultimately, we're going to show you how to use these skills to make your partner feel heard, seen, understood, supported, but ultimately safe to open up to you around anything and be able to have any conversation. Step number 2 is we're going to reconnect and restore your relationship. So next we show you how to use your newfound emotional security and understanding of the emotional capacity within your relationship to reconnect. And so this will allow you to reconnect and restore the intimacy, the trust, and the appreciation for each other that has been missing in your marriage for so long. And we will work closely with you and your partner to help you restore the masculine and feminine balance, bring that polarity back into your relationship. We'll support you to step into your masculine or feminine energy, whichever you want to embody more so, and cater to your partner's contrasting energy so that you are the yin and the yang together. I'll show you how to communicate in a way that deepens your trust and bond with each other. No more fighting, no more arguing. Everything is about communicating in a way that connects you back together. We're going to support you in defining roles in the marriage so that both of you are happy with who is responsible for what and how things play out, so ultimately you thrive rather than drag yourself through the mud as another chore each and every day being in this relationship. We're going to show you how to properly make use of reconnection techniques such as love language and conversational skills that will ultimately allow you to restore intimacy and deep, meaningful connection as part of the relationship you have. And then finally, you're going to go from being roommates to romantic partners once again. Step number 3, the final step in all of this, is the leadership and growth phase, because we need sustainability, right? So the final phase of this program will help the man and the masculine fully step in to the leadership role. whilst helping the feminine become that driving force behind, so that there is that intuition and that passing of guidance. And so it's harmonious. It comes together in a beautiful capacity, and each of you feel supported to be the very best that you can be throughout the entirety of your lives together. And this will be an action-focused process where, again, we will personally help you set the compass in your marriage to make sure that both of you are heading in the same direction. I'm going to show you how you can understand the right decisions to be making. So as a man leading from the front, you are always leading in a way that meets the needs of you, your partner, and the ultimate goal of the marriage. This is setting that direction on your own compass and meeting everybody's needs along the way. We're going to create patterns of consistency and accountability that you can hold yourself to account to. It leads to permanent change instead of empty promises time and time again. This is going to allow both of you to become the very best version of yourself. Gents, you're going to have an emotional engine to enable you to be at your very best, to be responsive, to curb the reactivity so that your leadership can be trusted. And ladies, you're going to become your husband's emotional support to enable him and encourage him to continue to be the very best version of himself without it feeling like you are nagging and mothering time and time again. He's going to want your support. He's going to want your intuition, because I'm going to show you how to do it in the very best way. But most importantly, we will ultimately help you build the best support system that you individually need to improve the relationship long term. Everything we cover in these 3 steps, you can utilize from this point moving forward. And so you will be able to continually grow the relationship time and time again, and you'll be able to do it on your own. No more repeat coming back for more and more and more information. You'll have all the tools to be able to do this together. This system is a culmination of years of research and effort that I've put into my own marriage, as well as the results of dozens of one-to-one clients that I've been working with to help transform their marriages as well. Like Jake, when he first came to me, he was blinded by the marriage problems and the struggles that he was facing to connect with his wife and his children. And after just short of 2 months of working together, he now enjoys a peaceful marriage, connects with his wife, can work through the struggles and the challenges that they face together, and he receives joy from spending quality time with his children as a complete byproduct of the entire process. Or Terry, for example, who was on the absolute edge of divorce being his reality and was struggling with a lack of communication in his relationship with his wife. And after we worked together for 12 weeks, he found not just the solution to repairing his marriage, but he stepped into this role of becoming the man that his wife always knew that he could be. And he has embraced the duty and responsibility to allow her to relax into her femininity. And they now find themselves in and around a community of other couples going through the same thing as them. And then we have Kyle, for example, who was struggling to find peace within his relationship, but also set personal boundaries to enable the relationship to grow. And after working together for just over 2 months, he completely regained control of his life and relationship, and now experiences a calmness and ease with his partner in any situation. Now, as I said earlier, due to the highly focused nature of this program, we can only take on a handful of couples every month so that we can focus solely on getting the best results possible. Because again, this isn't going to be some 2-year therapy session where you have to keep coming back every single week to discuss with me the same problems that do not seem to be changing. My goal is to get you real results, to help make real lasting changes in your marriage so you never have to work with me again. So with that said, this program obviously isn't going to be for everybody. This is not for you if you're someone who would rather talk and vent about your problems instead of actively solving them. If you're looking for an instant fix for your marriage without putting in any effort or work. If you think you have all the answers and you're not open to changing your ways. Or you'd rather win arguments against your partner than win back your marriage and your partner's love. However, this program is for you if You're tired of seeing the worst in yourself and your partner, and you're ready to reignite the intimacy and connection that you both once had. You're tired of applying verbal band-aids at the therapist's office, and you want to make real change happen in your marriage. You're sick of trying to change over and over, but still letting yourself and your partner down time and time again. You're ultimately willing to do whatever it takes to save your marriage right here and right now, and you understand it's going to take work, and it's going to mean difficult conversations have to happen. If that sounds like you, there's a link below this video that will bring you to a short application page. Simply fill out that application, and then you can book a time to chat with my team to see whether you would be a good fit for the couples program. Needless to say, since spots are limited, not everyone will be accepted. This program is not for everyone. But if everything that I have said today resonates with you, and you know that now is the time to finally change the trajectory of your marriage and restore the love and connection that you both once had together, then click the link below, fill out the application, and book a time to chat with my team. With that said, we look forward to speaking to you very shortly.